right, everybody. We're talking supernatural. We're talking biblical. And we've got our favorite author on good biblical fiction, everybody, Mr. Brian Godawa, in the house tonight, here today on Two Geeks and a Microphone.
Hello there. So who talks first? You talk first? I talk first.
I will talk first. Good evening, everybody. Welcome to Two Geeks and a Microphone. I am your co-host, Mr. Stephen Bosser, along with the one, the only, Mr. Michael Shanks, who's got his, is that your Cardinals hat you got tonight?
Yep.
Very nice.
One of my favorite Cardinals hats, too.
Very nice.
It's the 80s Cardinal bird. That's my favorite.
Oh, gotcha. You're showing your age there, I think. I'm just kidding.
Yeah, well, 1982 Cardinals, world champion Cardinals, the best Cardinals. Ozzie Smith, Vince Coleman. Anyway.
Hey, we're not talking sports tonight. I'm just kidding. Hey, everybody. Also, we've got our special guest, Brian Godawa, in the house with us. Brian, welcome. It's so great to have you back.
It's great to be back, guys. Thanks. It's going to be a good one.
We're a great one. Splendorific one. We'll put it there. We'll put it like that. Well, hey, everybody. So tonight, you guys know that we do a special segment which we like to call Creators Corner. We will talk with different creators all over the world. And I am so excited to have Brian back with us tonight. If you remember last time, for those that were here, Brian has got an incredible series of books and novels that he does. There's a whole thematic framework that he does with those. If you have not, this is going to be a special show for you because we're going to introduce you to, as I said before, our favorite biblical fiction author. Is that the right way to say that, Brian? Is it biblical supernatural fiction?
Yeah. You know, some Christians don't like that word fiction. The Bible's not fiction.
Yeah.
so I always just say, you know, like Bible epics.
There you go.
Bible epic author, you know.
All right. There we go. We'll go with that. Biblical epic. No, I can't. Bible epic. That's hard to say. I keep
Supernatural Bible epic is actually what I use for my advertising. Supernatural Bible epic.
Yeah. Well, it is great stuff. We've had a great time.
It kind of sounds like super fragilistic.
Expialidocious.
Yeah,
you say it. There you go. Right.
Supernatural Bible epic.
Oh my gosh, I like it.
All right. Well, to start off, Brian, would you please kind of introduce yourself? Just really, we'll talk more about kind of your themes, the stories that you've written, just kind of a good introduction on just the type of author you are beyond just a supernatural Bible epic. Now I'm going to have that song singing in my head this whole time, every time I say that now.
Supernatural Bible epic, expialidocious. Got it.
Oh my goodness. Go right ahead.
I expect that in your next ad.
Yeah. Well,
oh my goodness.
Well, my background in storytelling is actually from Hollywood. So, you know, I've been a screenwriter for decades in Hollywood. And in the latter part of my career there, I started writing novels. And the reason why was actually sort of not, it wasn't planned. You know, I had a couple of bad years, as all Hollywood people do. And it just forced me to think about, you know, expanding my horizons as a writer. What else could I do? And novel writing was one of those things. But I had a screenplay that I had written that I thought was the coolest thing to do, because it would be helpful for both, or be interesting to both Hollywood, you know, supernatural epic type stuff, and then Christians together, right? And it was called Noah Primeval. It was a story of Noah, and it had all this supernatural dimension to it that I just thought was a perfect combo, right? But then I found out Darren Aronofsky was making his movie, and I thought, oh, well, you know, he's going to beat me to that. So I thought, how can I get my story out? And I realized, I got to write it as a novel. So I wrote it, and that was like 16 years ago, and it just exploded. You know, this was when Kindle was, you know, still pretty young, and it just really exploded with a lot of sales. And I realized there's more story to tell. And when I first started, I actually I actually thought that it would be rejected by a lot of Christians because I was retelling the premise was I was going to retell Bible stories that touched upon the Watchers, the giants, the Nephilim, and that supernatural component that I had discovered through Michael Heiser's work. And if you know about anything about Michael Heiser, you know he wrote the book The Unseen Realm, and he talked about the divine council worldview, which is a place there. There you go. There you
This is the expanded edition too.
Yeah, highly recommended. Highly recommended. It's
Really
changed
good.
a lot of people's lives, including my own.
Yes.
And basically, his work was sort of helped me to deal with a lot of factors in the Bible that were strange and weird. You know, one of his favorite sayings is, "If it's in the Bible and it's weird, it's probably important."
Yeah.
You know, so these
That's
are
a
all
good
the
point.
yeah, I mean, I realized there was all these passages that I just sort of like, that's weird, but you know, I trust the Bible and I don't know what it means. Maybe one day I will, and I would just keep going and, you know, just sort of whatever, you know, because you can't explore everything, right? Well, the biggest passage of all of those passages was Genesis 6, 1-4, where it talks about the heavenly sons of God coming to earth, mating with the daughters of men and
like, what?
birthing giants, Nephilim. It's like, what? And that was very clearly mythological in its feel and vibe, and that's scary for many Christians because you know the Bible's not myth, you know, and I have a high view of Scripture as well, but nonetheless, it's in the Bible, and you have to face this and deal with it. And there's a way to understand it that maintains a high view of Scripture, but also begins to understand the ancient Near Eastern context of the Scripture. And this is something that we miss, and this is why we misunderstand a lot of passages. And so Heiser's work helped me start to see the connecting tissue between all those strange passages.
Yeah.
And it so blew my mind that I just thought, you know what? There's a storyline here. There's not just one story, Noah, you know, and the flood and the giants back then. But there's a storyline throughout the whole Bible that I call the War of the Seed. You know, and you get it from Genesis 3:15, where curse on the serpent. God says, you know, the seed of the serpent will be at war or at enmity with the seed of the woman, or Eve, right?
Yeah.
And people say that's the first messianic prophecy in the Bible because it says you will bite his heel, he will crush your head.
For sure. Is that
And
called
the
the
word
proto-evangelion?
Evangelion.
Yeah, that's the better way to say it. Yeah,
Proto-evangelion.
sorry.
Yeah,
Thank you.
And so the main idea there is that, you know, this is connected within the spiritual supernatural realm as well as the physical realm. And I just realized that there was a lot more of these stories to tell. And I thought at first I could get maybe, four more stories out of this. Well, now I'm up to my 17th novel and still going. I still have a few more to go.
Yeah.
So there's a lot to tell. And the premise of my storytelling, I started this thinking Christians are not going to like it, but I knew what I was doing was right and theologically accurate because I love the imagination. I'm an artist, but I've always loved philosophy and theology. And so I've studied the arts for many years, as well as philosophy, as well as the Bible and theology. And so I knew that what I was doing was okay, but I just wasn't sure. I didn't think Christians would because they might feel like you're playing around with the Word of God, you know? So what I do is I retell these Bible stories, but I do fill in between with fiction that will connect what we do know about the Bible with the things that we don't know. Because, you know, if you read the Bible, you realize the Bible tells you the highlights, right? So there's look at Moses' life, right? He's 40 years, 40 years, and 40 years. So, you know, you see a little bit about his birth, then you jump to 40 years later, then you jump to he goes into the desert, you jump 40 years later, he comes back. So it's like there's a lot in there, and a lot of it's connected theologically. And so I tell my stories in a way to bring that theology home, which is why I call my writing narrative theology. I'm actually writing theological novels, not historical. This is what history was really like. I mean, I do a lot of research. I do a lot of history, but I also incorporate a lot of the ancient Near Eastern and ancient Hebrew understanding into those stories. To help educate as well as entertain. Now, for those of you who might hear that and see, ooh, that sounds a little too intellectual for me, don't worry. My background in Hollywood is that I will only tell an entertaining story. If it's not entertaining, I won't tell it, because I have an obligation as an author to entertain you, and entertainment's not a dirty word. It's just not. The Bible's entertaining, right? So, but for those who want to go deeper, I do embed theology into it, and it's there for you if you want it. And so much so that I'll often have an appendix at the end of my book, or sometimes I'll have a companion book where I share the historical, biblical, and mythological research that I do. So that's sort of the big picture. But I maintain a high view of Scripture, but I also am trying to tell the supernatural side of things, which necessarily is a little speculative, right? Like the Bible does show us, obviously, some glimpses, but if we're really honest with ourselves, it's just glimpses. So we don't know a lot of detail. So, but because those supernatural components are important to the theology or the spiritual truth of the Bible, I tell that story. I try to tell that story as well. And here's the context of that. This is rooted in Heiser's work, the Divine Counsel.
Psalm 82, right?
Yeah, that's a good place. Or the classic place to start is Deuteronomy 32 verses 8 through 10. And the idea there is that God says that at the Tower of Babel, he actually assigns, or what's the word, gives as an inheritance to the Gentile nations. He separates them by their languages and creates the separate Gentile nations. And he places them under the authority of these sons of God. Who are the sons of God? Well, if you go back to Genesis 6, that strange verse, you find out these were rebel angels who violated God's order, and they're still around. And so, either they began as good angels and they fell, or they were always fallen angels. However you see it, at Babel, God places them under the authority of these fallen angels. And it's sort of like, look, if you're going to, build the Tower of Babel and you won't stop worshiping idols, God says, I'm going to give you over to your idols and see how you like being ruled by them. But I will maintain Israel as my own. I will be the inheritance for Israel. So this notion of inheritance is tied up in this watcher paradigm, as I like to call it. And you're right. Psalm 82 talks about it, talks about this notion of, God giving them authority to judge, and they rule unjustly, so God will punish them. And so this thing is a strange notion that I had not known of before, but it's all over the Bible. And a lot of times you don't see it because you're reading English translations with your modern Western eyes, and you don't know the ancient Near Eastern context for it. And this isn't a Gnostic secret knowledge thing that I'm talking about there. This is just, study to show yourself approved. Study the context of the Bible is everything. This is why so many people manipulate the Bible and use it out of context, is because they're just taking these Bible verses and they're just making it say what they want. But everything is written in this context. And the more you know about that context, I think it comes into clarity more. And this is one of those notions, is the watcher paradigm, this idea that over the nations and authorities on earth, and sometimes even cities, there are patron gods or patron deities. The Bible calls them Elohim, which means gods. He also calls them angels. The Septuagint calls them angels. So there's a variety of terms there, but they're basically principalities and powers, Paul, right? That are ruling over the authorities. So they're connected, so that whatever happens on earth is connected to what happens in heaven. There's many examples of this actually, but the classic one is, of course, Daniel 10. And in Daniel 10, we read about the prince of Persia and the prince of Greece and the prince of Israel, who is Michael the archangel. What are these princes? These are the spiritual principalities. They're not the earthly kings. They're spiritual principalities. But the context of Daniel 10 is that, and this is the premise of my whole series, is that what's happening on earth is connected in some way to what's happening in heaven. Therefore, if you read and understand Daniel's context, he's writing during the time of Cyrus, the Persian, ruling over Babylon and over Israel at the time. Daniel's really old, right? This is Daniel, when Daniel 10 is taking place, right? But what he's seeing is these angels are at battle, and at that time in history, he says, that I helped Michael against the angel of this principality of Persia. What's that about? Well, historically, what was going on was one of the co-regent kings over Babylon at that time, the Persian, his name was Cambyses. He hated religious shrines of all kinds, including the Jews. And so he was causing trouble, not allowing them to build their temple, even though Cyrus years earlier had, not years earlier, but earlier had given them the right to rebuild their temple. So that's the Prince of Persia is causing them trouble because of that historical connection. Then he says, the Prince of Greece will come and fight the Prince of Persia. What's that about? Well, if you understand the context of the big picture of Daniel, the whole big storyline of Daniel is 4 kingdoms that will rule over God's people until Messiah comes. Those 4 kingdoms are Babylon, Medo-Persia, Greece, and ancient Rome. And so what was the kingdom that conquered Persia? It was Alexander the Great, the Macedonian Greek king, who ultimately, at the time period he was writing this, it hadn't occurred. So he's saying the Prince of Greece will come. So that's expressing that earthly battle between Greece and Persia is expressed in the spiritual powers of Greece and Persia. Does that make sense? And so that was a concept that was so interesting to me that I thought, what would be going on in the heavenlies when we're looking at these spiritual or biblical stories of what's going on with God's people. And so each of my books, I come up with a fictional story of what might be happening in the heavenlies and what these sons of God, what these, bad guy watchers are doing, and they're kind of like the evil mafia, right?
I like how they don't get along either.
Yeah. They're united against God, but they're also, jockeying for power and battling among themselves, right?
It's great storytelling.
So
it's how they're, someone's bossing the other ones, or one's like, you don't know. I mean, it's just the conflict, the friction between them is, well, they're all the bad guys. So you automatically assume all the bad guys get along. These spirits, these principalities, as it were. So
they're individuals, right? I mean, they're individual personalities. So why wouldn't they have individual, desires and goals, right? So, but they're still united in the bigger cause against God, right? And so one of my creative licenses or creative conceits, as we would say in the art world, is that the premise is we know about that ancient civilizations had pantheons of gods, right? Greece had Zeus and Hera and all this, and Egypt had Amun-Ra and Horus, and Babylon had Marduk and Ishtar, and Canaan had Baal and Asher, right? So they all had these pantheons of gods, and I said, well, what if their beliefs in these gods, their myths, are rooted in reality, in that there are spiritual demonic principalities behind these gods, and there's some demonic reality to it. Now, this isn't entirely made up on my part, because there are passages in the Bible, such as Deuteronomy 32:17, where it says that when the Israelites went into Canaan and worshiped the Canaanite gods, it says they sacrificed to demons that were not God. So they're sacrificing to Baal and Asherah, and he's saying they're demons. Now, that word demon is kind of tricky, has a big background behind it, but suffice it to say that these are territorial spirits and powers. And they're bad guys. In the ancient world, they believed they could be good or bad, but from the biblical perspective, they're all bad because they're against Yahweh, right?
Right.
So now this isn't a one-to-one correspondence. I don't believe that all these pantheons with hundreds and thousands of gods, they're all specific individual entities. I think that, like Satan disguises himself, right, as an angel of light, so these beings can disguise themselves as whatever creatures they want. They're pretending to be the gods of the nations. So in my story, like in the new novel, I have these fallen watchers, but they go by Marduk, Nabu, Ishtar, right? And meanwhile, the archangels Michael and Gabriel and the others, they're fighting them. And so I don't just have this artificial spiritual story going on. I create a storyline in the supernatural realm that is somehow connected to what's going on biblically and historically at the same time. And I include mythological research from the pagan world. So in
Yes.
in the Daniel story, you'll see I draw from some Babylonian myths and I incorporate them into the story. So, for example, there's a story of this huge hybrid monster called the Anzu bird, and he steals the tablets of destiny from Marduk, the king of the gods. And the tablet of destinies is a talisman of power, of authority that the king of the gods has. So he has to hunt the bird down and kill it. Well, that's in their mythology. Well, I bring it into the spiritual story to help so that when you're seeing it, it's not just a made up story, it's actually rooted in their worldview. Now, because these are happening in the supernatural realm, you could just say, well, hey, this is an expression of the demonic spiritual world and what's going on. And so that's kind of how I'm integrating history, mythology, the Bible, but in a way that the Bible itself is, let's put it this way, Aslan is the one who is Lord of all in Narnia, right? So just like in Narnia, you've got these pagan centaurs and stuff, but they're all at the mercy of Aslan. And that's kind of how I tell my stories, if that makes sense.
It does. Yeah, it's fabulous. So when we first had you on, we did Enoch Primordial. Is what we did. So we start at the beginning. Now, I want to ask you why. Yeah, there it is. Which was great because that was a great introduction to this world of what you've been writing. And so when I started Daniel, listening to Daniel, I have it on audiobook. Everybody, it's on Audible. It's great because he reads it. Brian reads them. It's great. But you do a great job, and I want to talk about that later on. But I would say it was like coming back into a world that I had visited before, like when the supernatural guy, when they were coming in, here comes this big. The way you tell the beginning of the story is here comes Nebuchadnezzar, who's coming. And he's bringing in his army, and there's a whole, there's this, we'll welcome him. We'll just come in. We're going to give him our stuff. And so there's a whole event that happens there. But then boom, it drops. Well, here's the spiritual beings here too. It's like they're coming in. So, which was great, and so I really enjoyed it. The question is what I want to ask you is, does someone need to read any other books, or can they start with Daniel? And why Daniel now?
Oh, thank you. Thank you for that. That's a great, helpful question. Any of my books, you can just read them if it's about your favorite Bible character. I've got Abraham Allegiant. I've got David Ascendant. A David story that no one else has told, but it's biblical. Jesus Triumphant, right? We've got Moses, Jezebel, and Daniel. So you can start with any of them. Now, there is a continuity because the continuity is in the spiritual realm. It has to do with the archangels and has to do with the gods of the nations. Mm-hmm. But you can start anywhere you want. But if you really love it, then you're going to want to go back and start from the beginning because there is a chronology. Technically it starts with Enoch Primordial, which is book number 2, right. But it's the prequel to Noah Primeval. And people have told me that they love starting with Enoch Primordial first,
We did. We took that advice and we started with that first.
No, actually I read Noah first.
Oh yeah, you did. You read Noah. And
I started reading it before we met you.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So I read Noah first.
How did you find it? Do you prefer the?
Reading Noah, Noah's kind of my favorite one of them all that I've read so far. I've only read the first 3. I kind of say, yeah, you should start with Noah, but I understand what you're saying. Enoch is definitely a prequel to Noah. Well,
what I did was I wrote Noah first because that's what I was inspired by. But then I realized, oh my gosh, I can't write about the giants and not write about Enoch, right? Because the
Right.
book of First Enoch, which I don't believe it's scripture, but it's a good resource, source
Right.
of Jewish legend, and I incorporate that into the Enoch book primordial. So, but I wrote Enoch primordial as a sequel. I'm sorry, as a prequel. Which I like watching prequels after originals because there's something about the way they work together when you're seeing the early one second, if that makes any sense. Whatever. But
You get that context after.
the context is you're seeing Methuselah when he's young after you've already seen him as
Right.
old. That kind of a thing. But a lot of people have just told me, I prefer reading Enoch first. So that's fine. But I've gotten off on a track here.
It's kind of like us watching Star Wars, seeing Obi-Wan Kenobi, and then going back and watching the prequels and seeing Ewan McGregor play Obi-Wan.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Exactly.
It all comes back to Star Wars. Sorry.
Yeah, of course.
But each one's a different set though. So
Right. So each of them, I'm focusing on that particular Bible character and their, unique story in context with the whole story of the War of the Seed, and it's a very messianic storyline, right? So you can start anywhere, or you can read from the beginning, whichever way works fine. I would recommend if you love Daniel, go ahead and start with Daniel. That's my latest book. To be honest, my editor and all my first readers are saying it's my best book I've written. So it's it's got that going for it. Daniel is just he seems to be one of the most beloved characters for most Christians, and not the least of which is of course his prophecy. Prophecy is a big hot topic, and so that's why Daniel is very interesting to people. And sure, you can start with Daniel. Now, the thing about it is, it's going to be a trilogy. This is the first one, but you don't have to wait till the other books are out before you read it, because even though they are going to be the story of Daniel's life, each book has a beginning, middle, and end. In other words, it takes place in a different time in Daniel's life. So you can read the first novel and it'll be a complete, wonderful story, like watching the first Star Wars, right?
Yeah.
There's more, but it has a big ending, and so does mine as well.
Okay.
So there's
great.
that, but there's also something to be aware of. Don't expect the prophecy stuff yet. That's not coming till the second novel, because one of the things that I realized when I decided to start writing Daniel, it's kind of funny. I'm like, why didn't I start with Daniel, years ago? Or why didn't I include Daniel in Chronicles and Nephilim? Because, like I said, he has all this stuff about watchers. In fact, his is the only book where the word watchers is used in the Bible. And his is one that has that Daniel 10, which is a very explicit principalities and powers kind of passage and stuff. Honestly, I don't know why I skipped over it, but it might have something to do with the fact that I knew there's all this prophecy and I didn't know how to deal with it at the time. But now that I've written much more in the series that's connected to Daniel, now I'm going to go back and I know how to deal with Daniel in a very exciting and entertaining way. But there was an elephant in the room, and that elephant was, if you read the Daniel chapter 1, you see he's a noble, son of a noble in Judah, and so he's in the line of Judah, actually. And he goes to Babylon, and he's forced to learn the language and literature of the Chaldeans, which was basically the school of the wise men, or they call it the house of the tablet. House of the tablet was they learned to be a scribe, and then along with learning the language and literature of the Chaldeans, they then learn the various actions of divination, like astrology, liver divination, and this kind of stuff. And so we read that and just jumps over 3 years. So he studied it for 3 years, and at the end, Nebuchadnezzar said, "You're 10 times better than all my other magicians and sorcerers." And this is one of those like strange passages where, like, how in the world can Daniel, as we know him, being, the man of firm conviction who doesn't compromise, how could he learn and engage in the school where he learns how to do liver divination and astrology, which is condemned by Torah? And that's a big issue. So I realized, I got to work through this myself and try to make sense of it. And then I realized, you know what? Story is like Harry Potter meets God, because
Right.
he's like a 15-year-old kid, 3 years of school, right? And I thought, you know what? This is the vibe of the first novel. So the first novel tells the first 3 years of Daniel, only chapter 1, of his school experience before he starts to interpret the dreams for Nebuchadnezzar.
Yeah.
But I promise you, it'll be, if you love Daniel, you're going to love this story for sure, even if it doesn't go into the prophecy yet.
Right. Okay. Well, hey, Mike, do you want to show the trailer for the book?
Yeah, sure.
Let's do that now. Let me bring it up and stuff so we can do that. So everybody, this is kind of a treat. So we want to show you the trailer that Brian has.
All right. Ready?
Yep. Go.
What if the gods of ancient Babylon were not myths, but fallen angels? You know the Bible story of Daniel. Of faith empires cannot break, but you've never experienced it like this. The Daniel Trilogy by best-selling author Brian Godawa. Part of the Chronicles of the Watchers, a series of supernatural biblical novels charting the influence of spiritual warfare on human history. Jezebel, Moses, Judah Maccabee, and now the Daniel Trilogy. The first novel, Daniel, Exile in Babylon. Available in ebook, paperback, and audiobook at Amazon.com. Chronicles of the Watchers by Brian Godawa at Amazon.com.
Ta-da! How was that, getting that made?
Oh, that was fun. That was fun. AI is just a major blessing, It really is.
Yeah.
But one of the things I wanted to explain to people, if you're wondering, Chronicles of the Watchers, the first series called Chronicles of the Nephilim, how does that all work? And there's a third series called Chronicles of the Apocalypse. Well, here's how that works. Chronicles of the Nephilim was my first series of 8 books that I wrote. After I finished it, I realized, I have to go back and touch some of these stories that I skipped over that I shouldn't have. Moses, Jezebel, right? So I started Chronicles of the Watchers, and these are all independent, stories, but they do integrate with Chronicles of the Nephilim. And then at the end, there's Chronicles of the Apocalypse, and that's what you watch at the end, because it is the origin story of the book of Revelation. Now, most novels series about Revelation are all sort of the same premillennial interpretation of how this is going to happen shortly in our future, right? Mm-hmm. Well, I wanted to tell the origin story of the book of Revelation. What was going on when John was writing it? Christians are being persecuted by Nero. All these things are going on. And then how did the Christians of the first century interact with that letter? Because, of course, it was written to them. And so that was the unique take on that. And that sort of wraps them all up. But if you go to my website, I show you the whole what's the exact chronology in case you're wondering. But each of the books, when you read it, at the end of the book, it tells you what book to read next in whatever series it is.
Yeah.
That helps make some sense of all these different series and how they're all connected.
Now, I noticed on the Jezebel book, it says at the top, soon to be major motion picture. So what's the story?
What?
It doesn't say soon to be. It says to be a major motion picture.
To be. Okay.
Because,
wait a minute, is that like to be or not to be?
Yeah. Because even when I wrote it years ago, getting movies made is, near impossible. And I was originally commissioned by independent movie producers. And independence is not in the studio system. And anyone who knows anything about Hollywood knows that you could have a movie and almost be ready to get it made and it just falls out. Most movies don't get made, even if they're good, right? And so they've been trying to get funding for this forever, and who knows if it will or not. They're still trying, but sometimes, you hear about some movies, it takes them 10, 15 years to get a movie made. It's just crazy, right? And that's kind of where Jezebel's at. So,
okay. Mm-hmm. Well, you got to be talking to those guys that do, what is it? The Jesus, the Chosen.
Oh, yeah. This is a little too harsh or strong for that crowd. I think.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't know, because David. Have you watched David?
No,
I only watched
I
the
haven't
first
watched
season.
either.
I haven't watched the second season. I liked the first season. I thought it was good. I
haven't.
enjoyed it, and I don't know. It's got some really intense stuff in it.
Oh, well, that's good
And
to hear.
yeah, I think your stuff would fit in well over there. So
Yeah.
and I think they're the same people that made The Chosen.
Oh, okay.
don't know.
Oh, the same
But
studio.
Yeah,
same
same
studio,
studio.
yeah.
Right. Same
Yeah.
studio.
But,
Right.
but we would say your books are very PG-13 for sure.
Yeah, that's putting it mildly.
right. I know.
Sometimes I do think there are, but PG-13 is fair. I always say mature teens and above. Look, the Bible itself is rated R at places. Okay.
Right.
And so
Right.
I don't go
Yeah.
out of my way. I don't go out of my way to be gross or explicit, but the Bible does deal with everything from genocide to mass rape. So, that stuff, if you read the Bible, you're reading that stuff. And if I tell people, if you can't read Ezekiel chapter 16 or Ezekiel chapter 23 to your child, then you probably wouldn't want to read my books to them either, right? But that's the
That's
Bible.
fair.
So, yeah.
Yeah.
Well,
Okay,
now in David, they do show him. He cuts the head off of the giant, and he actually holds it up and everything. So it's pretty intense. So I don't know. I think you should talk to those guys.
Yeah.
I want to see Noah get made.
Yeah, that would be cool.
It would be.
To do it right.
Yes, exactly.
Yes. So one of the things that you just referenced just a minute ago, but I really wanted to know, with all the research that you've done, because it was obvious when I was listening to the book that you went beyond just the biblical research. And that's not just the biblical research about Daniel, but the biblical research of the unseen realm. But then I was like, oh, there's other parts that he's done a lot of research of the Persians, it seemed, and stuff. So what kind of things did you learn in your deep research for this book?
Well, there's a lot of worldview things, when you study the Mesopotamian culture and Neo-Babylonians and stuff. And so I try to incorporate a lot of the little things, that help give flesh to the way they saw the world, But, one of the, let's see, well, I mean, not the least of which is I do show, I talk a little bit about astrology and a little bit about divination, and I show how that works. And I also show how Daniel and his three friends, how they wrestle through, how do we deal with this stuff? How can we learn about this stuff without engaging in it, But astrology is one of the things that is an interesting element that, without going into too much detail, there's the Star of Bethlehem in the first century that led the Magi to Christ. Well, the Magi were Parthians, and that word Magi is the Persian word for Babylonian wise men. And so 500 years earlier, Daniel is the head of the Magi or the wise men for 70 years.
Oh, wow.
In Babylon. So he's having major influence. And, you ask yourself, well, why is it that in the first century they're looking for a king out of Israel, which is the armpit of the Levant? And they don't like, nobody likes Jews back then, right?
Right. Can anything good come from Nazareth?
Yeah, exactly.
Right.
So where would pagans be getting this idea from? Well, that just shows the influence of Daniel. But there's more to it than that, because it wasn't, we know that Daniel had some messianic prophecies, right? And so they probably got filtered down, but not about the stars, And is it astrology or is it astronomy, right? And so they're following the star, and some people believe it's supernatural, but there are more recent Christian scholars and researchers who have made a really good argument that the Star of Bethlehem is actually a natural alignment of stars and such. And that's not astrology, because astrology is the belief that, the ancient world, and by the way, it's not horoscopes. Like you hear zodiac and horoscopes.
Right.
That was not in the ancient Babylonian world. That's more like in the first century Greece, brought that individual horoscopes. Back in the Babylonian times, they did believe that the stars were divine and they exerted influence on humanity, but it was through the leaders and through the authorities, right?
Okay.
But they understood that there was a regularity to nature, so they kept astronomical observations for 1,000 years, you know, and they did believe that there were omens connected. But the omenology that they had wasn't like absolute fate. It wasn't like, you know, this is going to happen because the stars say so. It was, you know, there's an eclipse. When there's an eclipse of the moon and the lower quadrant is obscured, there's danger to the king or something like that. And so they could be careful of this. And some of them did, you know, foretell the death of a king or a ruler. But there's a lot of issues and problems with that. But nonetheless, then they had incantations that they would then engage in to try to counter that. And then here's, you know, speaking of like cultural worldview things. So because they believed that the omen was powerful and that it could exert influence, and if the king's life was in danger, say the king, you know, this omen, the eclipse and all this says that the king's going to die. Of course, you have to ask yourself, what king? There's lots of kings, right? It's like, you know, and everyone is, everyone's egocentric, right? You know, so it must be the Assyrian king, the king of Akkad, right? But then what about the Hittite king, or what about the Jewish kings, you know? And there's that relativism going on there. But nonetheless, you know, they thought it applied to themselves. And so what they would do is they would say, okay, what we'll do is the king could die. So they would take like some poor homeless guy off the streets, a beggar or something, and they would literally crown him as king privately, but they would do it, give him the scepter and the crown, really, truly, because he had to be king, and then they would kill him. Oh. And then the real king would get crowned again. So they would do this kind of in private, I think, so that therefore that would fulfill the omen. See, and that's how seriously they took it. So, you know, they did. But going back to the astrology thing,
you know, I never thought about it. You know, other kings besides the Jewish king, thinking it was them. I never even considered that.
Yeah.
That blows my mind.
Well, Daniel brings some of that wisdom to play here. You know, it's like, well, how do they know which king it's talking about anyway? And there's lots of kings that die every year. So,
sure.
So there's no real, it's just like modern horoscopes. It's like, well, there's no real predictive value. You just find something that fits, you know, that kind of thing.
Yeah.
But nevertheless, though, there is something about the astronomical regularities and the constellations in the sky. So the ancient world saw these constellations of stars, and in order to remember them, they gave them the names, right? And the zodiac comes from that. But the zodiac is not personal horoscopes. That was later. The zodiac was just the term for constellations that were along the ecliptic. And so these were the paths of the sun or the paths of the moon, that kind of a thing. And that was just how they labeled things. So even in the Bible talks about constellations, you know, and Job 38 talks about the Mazzaroth, and the Mazzaroth is the zodiac constellations. They even named some of them. Job names a couple of the constellations. Huh. So everyone understood the constellations. The question was just, were they divine stars that exerted influence on humanity, or did Yahweh create them? And of course, the prophets say, you know, Yahweh, I put the stars out in the sky, right? And I did this, not, you know, they're not gods themselves, that kind of a thing. Well, the principle here, though, is that there are some Christians who've done research, and without going too far into it, they've made the argument that this astronomical, the constellations, if you look at the 12 signs of the zodiac, again, it has to do with the ecliptic, not something else, that they are pictures, you know, Virgo the Virgin, Leo the Lion. These are pictures of the gospel that God embedded into the universe. They make the argument that Virgo the Virgin, right, will have a child. And you go through them all, and they're all different components of the Messiah King until it even gets to Leo the Lion, who's Judah, the Lion of Judah, right? And so they make this argument that that's not astrology. What that is Psalm 19, the heavens declaring the glory of God. Right. And their voice, they have a voice, but there's no voice. Well, what does that mean? They're pictures. Maybe it's the picture of the gospel before mankind had writing. You know, this is speculative. And look, I mean, it's not a major theory that's touted by a lot of theologians or anything, but it's got some interesting storytelling power that I incorporate into the story, because I'm thinking, well,
Neat.
where would the Magi get this idea from of what stars, would represent, and how would they be connected to Israel instead of some other kingdom? And so I try to give a speculative answer to that in my Daniel story. I'm setting that up in the first novel, and you'll see it played out later as well. It's kind of an interesting concept there.
Now, so you say it's a trilogy. So now you're telling us you're planting seeds in this first novel that's out now. So how long do we have to wait to get the other ones?
Well, it's not going to be like, it took me a year to get this one done, but it's not going to take a year to get the second one done, because I'm already working
done
on
a lot
it
of the research
and
stuff. Or?
Yeah, and there's still more research to be done for each one, but I hope to have it done within the year for sure.
Yeah.
So
Cool.
that's my
exciting.
goal.
Yeah. Well, here, real quick, I'm gonna share my screen here real quick, and I want to take it. Whoa, that's me. That's that. Second, everybody.
There we go.
And then I know this is crazy. These things, we got them really big. Whee! All right, so I'm going to do this, and then please tell her thank you for that. I thought you guys were already up on this screen. Okay,
Well,
she can
heard
be able
you.
to hear us now. Thank you. Sorry. Thank you so much, Brenda. I owe you one. Okay, so let me start over real quick. This is Godawa.com. Godawa.com is the website. So please go there. Now, this page that I'm on is not the homepage. I'll show you the homepage in a moment. But this is the reading order that he mentioned earlier, that Brian mentioned earlier. And I'm not going to go through everything like I said again, but you've got it where if you want to go chronological, for those who like to read their Bibles chronological, maybe. No, I'm just kidding. But you want to get chronological in the series, or if you want to do smaller groupings. Let me test something out here too, by the way. There we go. That's a little bit better, much more better.
Cheers.
So cheers. So here's the like, if you just want to read the beginnings, here's Enoch primordial, Noah primeval, Gilgamesh immortal, and Abraham allegiant. And then if you want to do another small section, here's Moses, Joshua, and Caleb, or Judah Maccabee, part 1 and part 2, which is part of the Chronicles of the Watchers. Then there's the Apocalypse, Chronicles of the Apocalypse books, which is like Tyrant, Rise of the Beast, Remnant, Rescue of the Elect, Resistant, Revolt of the Jews, and Judgment, Wrath of the Lamb. Now, in these, this is if you're interested in Apocalypse. like this as he was saying the story of how Revelation came out, and then there's this series which is David Ascendant, Jezebel, Harlot Queen of Israel. Is it? I'm not going to pronounce this. Chin. Thank you. Thank you. I appreciate that. Thank you. Qin, Dragon Emperor of China, and then Jesus Triumphant. Now, those are if you want to get started. Now, you've got other books. Sorry, everybody. I'm going to scroll up real quick. Where you have your theological thriller novels, Imagination and God. I want to go here for a second. And you've got interesting discussions on Leviathan and Behemoth, the giant chaos monsters in the Bible. I do enjoy your Hollywood worldviews. There's Imagination of God, God Against the Gods. There's the online course where you get video lectures. There's the online course of the Imagination of God. Screenwriting for Christians. The Glory of Story, and then Genesis to Revelation. That's your MP3 audio lecture. So there is a lot of great stuff. I guess that's my point. That's what I'm trying to get at. There's a lot of great stuff on the website. I'm going to scroll back up, everybody, real quick.
And I did take advantage of the free copy, the free e-copy of Leviathan, and yeah.
Yeah, what he's talking about is all my books have some kind of free offer in them, so whatever book you buy, they'll, check out, just give me your email and I'll send you a free book.
Yeah,
you get on my email list, but you can unsubscribe at any time.
And then you also have the picture books too, with all the pictures.
Okay, so my Hollywood background. I just love casting my novels, and they're epic novels. So, historical epics. So there's a lot of characters and to keep track of. And I know it's hard sometimes for people because some of them have really wild names like Nabu Shumalisher or Sinliki Unini is in Gilgamesh, right? So, what I do is, I have a great artist, Cam Harless, and I work with him with AI to cast my novels. Now, if you go to any novel on the website, under the novel, you'll see a tab that says Cast of Characters. Click on that, and you'll see all the AI pictures of characters, and not all of them, but almost all of them. But then if you buy the book, you can get all of them. But I don't know if are you going there now to?
Yeah, there we go. There we go. So no.
Scroll down on the left. Scroll down on the left. Cast of Characters. There we go.
Do 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 do.
Yeah, it takes too long, man. I've talked to them about this, but
I just figured it was my internet, or just because I've got EV Mux going. It takes a lot of.
Did you actually click it? Oh,
I did. It's got a little whirly thing going on.
Got it.
So we'll come back to it in a second.
I'll explain it. So you've got all those characters there. And for those of you who like to have help, I like help because I like help in terms of when I'm reading, it's hard to remember who's who. But if I got a picture in my mind, I can picture that. And so that's for those people who like that. A lot of people say, I'd rather come up with my own image. That's fine too. But it's free on the web. But if you want to get the complete characters, they're on Amazon as well. I have character books that have like.
I thought it came up, but I guess it still didn't. Sorry.
Oh, that's a bummer.
Not well. It's probably. Well, I would.
A lot of pictures.
Yeah, I think some of it is my internet. Sometimes when I'm running live, it's eating up a bunch of my bandwidth too. So.
Oh yeah.
We'll see what it comes up. No, that's great. So. And you got the book trailers in there and stuff like that too. So
I got it.
Yours came up. See?
Yeah, you should buy a Mac.
It's an ongoing argument. Well played.
Look at that, another guest that agrees with me.
Now you have it too. What do you know?
Yeah, I got it too. Just
but you noticed the Mac got it first.
Way quicker. Yeah.
All right. Let me share my screen, everybody. Thanks for your patience, everyone.
There's Noah.
All right, this is
Noah.
Yeah, this is Noah. Or here, let me. So Noah Primeval. So you get the cast characters. So here's Noah. I'm gonna go a little slower. He looks great.
Yeah, he
Yeah.
does.
And I have these little descriptions of the characters too, which are really cool. That's his wife, Mzara.
Zara. Oh, speaking of which, we'll go through this, but I do want to I think it's really important. When we talked last time about this, you talked about the importance of a love story, romance. You want a romance.
Yeah.
So we'll come
Yeah.
back to that in a minute because that's a great story in this novel. It was fantastic.
Yeah.
Uriel.
Uriel the angel. Now, Uriel is a character he doesn't show up in the Bible, but there are Second Temple literature like Tobit and Apocrypha and Pseudepigrapha, Jewish legends that name 7 archangels, including Raphael, Sarakel, Ramiel, and Raguel, and Uriel, and Book of Enoch and several other apocryphal books. Yeah, they're not scripture again, but I like to draw from ancient Jewish and Christian legends, which means, a lot of times they're retelling Bible stories too, but they're just sort of making it relevant for their time and age. Some of their own creative elements as well. I like to draw from the ancient legends themselves rather than make up my own, right? So that again, as you're reading it, you're actually learning a little bit about the traditions and legends of Christianity and Judaism.
Yeah. I had no idea about that one, actually. That's awesome. So that's Uriel. So here's Methuselah.
Tubal Cain,
I remember him.
the blacksmith. Jubal and Jabal, the
Jabal.
brothers were, one's a singer and one's something else. Ham. Ham embraces the pagan world.
Right.
He's not a good guy. Noah's son, Ham,
Yep, I remember.
As a fictional girl, fictional romantic interest. These are some fictional characters.
Golanu. So, it's a lot of fun. I should have picked the Daniel one. Actually, is what I should have.
Yeah.
I know. What am I doing?
Wait a minute. Go back to it because I want to hold on. Go back to it just for a second.
Okay.
And keep going. Get down to the 4, to the archangels.
Oh, okay.
Just real quick.
The archangels.
So Gabriel,
Michael.
to me, looks like a thinner rock.
Or Idris Elba.
Rock.
Oh, okay.
Oh, Idris Elba. I'll go for that one. Yeah.
I don't know. I think his face looks more like the rock.
Do you?
Who does Mikhail look like?
Well,
Superman.
Henry Cavill, yeah.
Okay, yeah.
I can't wait to see his new movie, the Highlander.
Oh, he's playing Highlander? Oh, awesome.
He is.
Awesome.
Yeah. I forgot who else is in it. There's several actors, famous actors are going to be in it. He's filming it now. Raphael, there's Uriel again.
Okay, you can go to Daniel now. I just wanted to point out that I thought Gabriel looked like the Rock.
Looked like the Rock, thinner version of the Rock. I don't know. Give him a couple of years. I'm just kidding. Just kidding. Anyway, so I'll get to Daniel. I'll get
Go to Daniel while I'm talking about love stories. So
perfect. Yes, thank you.
One of the things about Daniel is I had thought, I had heard that there was some good arguments that Daniel might have been a eunuch, because that's what they did to a lot of captives, when they took them in and brought them near the palace and stuff. And that's factual history. But so I was looking into it and I was just, I'm just hoping that maybe there's 20% of scholars who say that maybe he wasn't, But in my research, I actually was surprised to discover that he more than likely was not a eunuch. And based on my own research, where I actually found Babylonian manuscripts, we have cuneiform texts from clay tablets, thousands of them that have been unearthed over the years, right?
Yeah.
And there are letters written by wise men to the kings, some in Neo-Assyria and some in Neo-Babylonia. And in there we find out what the requirements of being a wise man are. And number one, they don't live in the palace; they live in the city. Secondly, they all had families. And they talk about their legacies, like I'm so-and-so scribe, son of the so-and-so scribe, son of so-and-so scribe that served this king and that king. So they have family legacies, right? And then lastly, there's actually a description where it says, the wise men to be without blemish. Of course, the Akkadian word is umanu, but it means wise man. And they must be without blemish, not to have all their limbs and, no leprosy and not a eunuch.
Right. Gotcha.
So it's like, well, Nebuchadnezzar, this is what I never understood. Why did Nebuchadnezzar in Daniel 1 say, give me men without blemish? It's like, what is that about, right?
Yeah.
Well, now it makes sense because I found the actual Babylonian text that confirmed that's part of the requirements. Well, why would you get someone deliberately not to be a eunuch and they're not supposed to be eunuchs and then you make them eunuchs? That just doesn't make sense. So Daniel more than likely was not. And this gave me a foundation to come up with a fictional love story, but it was more than that for me because I also wanted to make sense of, you don't really see a lot of women in the Daniel story, and certainly not amongst the boys. They're in the school that are mostly men and males. So how can you make that work with what we see in the Bible, the vibe of the way we see his world is in the Bible? Well, I have him fall in love with one of his Jewish servant girls because he's a noble. And before he leaves, and then he gets torn from her, he gets brought as a slave to Babylon, and she's still in Jerusalem. And they're trying as everything's going on, they're trying to escape and get back to each other, in different ways. So it's like Sleepless in Seattle, meets God, and they can't get back to each other. But what that affords me to do too is I can then bounce back and forth between Jerusalem and Babylon. And I want to see what's going on in Jerusalem at the same time as what's going on in Babylon, because Jerusalem slowly, eventually. Jerusalem will be destroyed and the temple, and there's a series of deportations that go on. And so I wanted to deal with this, but also I wanted to deal with the exilic prophets other than Daniel. At the same time that Daniel is in Babylon, Jeremiah is prophesying in Jerusalem, and Ezekiel is prophesying in Babylon. And that's really interesting, right? Like when we read these books, they're totally out of context from the others, right? And in fact, many times I would read Jeremiah and Ezekiel, and they're just wild, right? But they're also just a lot of condemnations and judgments and all this. But it's not very much in context. There's very little of the narrative. There's some in Jeremiah, a little bit in Ezekiel, but not much. And so I've often had a hard time understanding what's the context of all this, right? Well, my study enabled me to find the context and put that into the story. So when you read it, you'll now see how they all kind of, what was going on with Jeremiah at the time of when Daniel was in Babylon. And I'm drawing from the book of Jeremiah, so I'm making that accurate too. I'm taking as many characters as I can from the Bible and incorporating them into the storyline. Ebed-Melech, a lot of these, even minor characters that you don't realize were key effectual characters. Like for instance, there's a guy you only hear about once. His name is Ahikam, son of Shephanah or something like that. And it turns out that he's one of the rich guys who helped protect Jeremiah from getting killed, right? Well, that's all. You just hear about that once, and it's like, well, that's interesting. Well, what if he's a fan? He's one of these nobles who's a fan of Jeremiah, probably a secret admirer at first, right?
Yeah.
So I bring in that storyline. So that enables me to sort of wrap together all these different storylines into one big package that will help make sense of those other books as well.
That is cool. I mean, I thought I saw something about Jeremiah being in it, but now I'm like, oh, I can't wait. Now, I will say this. One of my favorite scenes I'm hoping is in this book, I saw it in the trailer, was the three friends.
Yes. So this is another thing I wanted to. We don't know anything about them. All we know is that they stayed firm to God and they went into the furnace and God rescued them. We don't know anything about them. And to me, they're his best friends. They're hanging out, and it's like, of course, they're going to be a key element in Daniel's story. So I give each of them, like the Chosen, I give them backgrounds that are feasible and make sense within that context. And each of them are unique, different characters. Like Mishael, I have him. He's more of a jock. Right. So he's kind of buff. He's a fighter. He's not very good as a scribe. And so he has some trouble in scribe school, and they have to help each other out. And then I also have one of them, one of the characters, Hananiah, I have him be autistic. And I did that because I thought that'd be an interesting character to bring some dramatic interplay there. But it would also help me deal with how would they have been able to memorize and learn all this stuff, and how would they be able to make these astronomical connections? Well, if you know anything about the autistic spectrum, there are some who can see connections with things that we don't see, and what better than the world of astronomy to be able to see the constellations that others can't catch, and to be able to see connections there. And so that was an interesting. Hananiah ended up. At first, it was sort of like an interesting dramatic technique that I was doing, but then it turned out that he ended up being crucial to the plot line and one of the significant heroes in the story. So that was a real fun surprise for me.
Yeah. So they just got where I met in the book. They just got introduced. Or mentioned. So they're just kind of mentioned, and so because it's the Hebrew names. It's not the Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego names. Yeah. And I was like, wait a minute. I know who these guys are.
Yeah. But that's another thing too. We hear about Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, but their Jewish names, I have them use the Jewish names with each other to maintain that Jewish separateness, right? But of course, when they're dealing with the Babylonian world, they'll use their Babylonian names. Yeah. So that's how they try to maintain a sort of separateness in spite of being captives.
I have to say,
I'm glad you do that because I can never remember their Jewish names. I can only remember them by Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego. And their Jewish names are harder.
Yeah, they are. They are.
I have to admit, though, I am in awe of your research and detail, because I wouldn't have thought of, if I'm writing a story or something if they're going to use their Jewish names with each other, but when they're, with the Babylonians, they're using their Babylonian names kind of a thing. And so I just the amount of research, because you don't just do like the Bible story. I mean, as we stated, you've gone outside the realm into those other cultures and the stories from those other cultures. And then how do those lead into what's happening behind the scenes in the unseen realm, the spirit, the supernatural side of things. So I'm looking forward to continuing this book because I'm already hooked in. I'm like, what's going on next? Because I've just now seen where the supernatural characters have kind of come in now. And so, and that's it's just a neat aspect of your writing and your style of having that. So it's cool. It's neat stuff. Is there any reason why you think you're doing Daniel now versus not earlier, or just because he's so popular, I guess?
One of the reasons is because I'm not a prophet. And what I mean by that is I knew that Daniel was a center point in the Old Testament prophetically. He's got the strongest messianic prophecies about, like, literally 490 years and the Messiah comes. Like, that's very explicit. That's why in the first century, the Jews were looking for Messiah, because they knew about that prophecy.
Knew it was that time frame.
So he's crucial at that point, but also he was crucial to understanding Revelation. And I have him, they reference him a lot in my Apocalypse series, right? But because I'm writing fiction, I'm trying to stay true to Bible, right? But still, there's also interpretations. We all have different interpretations at times of prophecies, right? But I needed to, and then I had the book of the Maccabees. And the Maccabees is not in the Bible, okay? It is in the Catholic Bible, but it's in the Apocrypha. But it's a crucial story because it's not just about an important time in Jewish history that had to do with, like one of the only, it's kind of like a Jewish Braveheart, really. I mean, it was pretty much a Jewish Braveheart. But I knew that the Maccabee story was a fulfillment of key Daniel prophecies, right? Oh. And most scholars acknowledge that. But see, I had to work out that prophecy in my Judah Maccabee novel before I could give the prophecy. Because if I gave it and then I get to writing the story and I realize, oh no, I want to do this, I'm not God, right? So it's like I have to do the fulfillment first, so that when I talk about it, again, I'm not changing the biblical prophecy, but the way that I have it, fictionally tell the story and the way it works out. I needed to know how I did that and how Judah Maccabee was fulfilled, because I didn't know exactly all the details. So by working that out, now when I give the original prophecy in Daniel, it's going to have that context, So
Wow.
It's going to be cool.
It's going to be very cool. So I will try to be good and not bug you about book 2 and book 3 of this trilogy. I'm just saying. I can't promise anything, but I'm going to do my best. Man.
It just gets better. And the third one is going to be huge, man. It's going to be awesome.
You're killing me, Smalls.
Yeah. At first I thought, like, this first one's really exciting. And then I'm like, and the second one, I'm like, I've got an idea, but now I've worked out the idea so much. It's like, this is going to be maybe better than the first one. But I know the third one because I've already worked out the basic storyline for that, But again, that's where I bring in the prophecy. It's going to be huge in that sense. But
okay.
But rather than talk about all that stuff, that's down the road. The first one, like I said, it's a standalone novel, so you can read it and enjoy it. You're not gonna be left hanging.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah. There's gonna be continuity for sure, but you're not gonna be left hanging like on a cliff.
Right. Yeah. Wow. Well, I'm super excited about it. Just because we've enjoyed your writing, we've enjoyed your books, and pretty excited that you're doing the Daniel one now. And so I was even more intrigued of, we got Daniel. How's he going to do it? How's that 90 feet tall and 9 feet wide going to work out? And, now we got the fiery furnace, what that's going to be. So I'm going to be pretty excited. Here goes. Brenda says much more better than the first one. Yeah, cheers. Yeah. Much more better.
So here's the cool thing too. There's, if you study the Bible, you find there's a lot of anomalies, things that aren't like, how does that work? And what's going on there? And they're not explained. And sometimes liberals jump on it and see, that's why the Bible's not accurate or something like that. But
right.
When you study these things, you find answers. One of them is, where's Daniel when the three guys are told to worship, bow down to the statue, and they don't, and they're put in the furnace fire? Where's Daniel? He's nowhere to be found. Why wouldn't he be, right? And he's like one of the chief heads, right?
Right.
Well, I've worked out a way that makes sense with what we do know in the Bible of why he wasn't there at that time. And those are the little things that I just love for my own self. As I'm working through the story, I'm trying to find out how can I stay true to what the Bible's saying, but it's an anomaly that I have to explain then, and that there's a lot of those.
Very cool.
All right. Well, real quick, where's the best place that people can go? Do you want them to go to your website? And then also that will have the links to the Amazon pages.
Well, you know what? If honestly, just go straight to Amazon, go to Brian Godawa's author page, because all the books and all the series have all the copy on Amazon that I have at my website. To be frank, you can find out anything you want to know about each book before you buy it, and the series as well. There's, and that's a little bit more helpful in that sense. But look, if you want to go to the website, I try to make it, a very interesting one. There's lots of free articles.
There's
on
all kinds
some
of
of
stuff
these
on there. Yeah.
And stuff. And like I said, the cast of characters.
Yeah.
But exclusively on Amazon. But every book is in paperback, Kindle, large print, and audiobook. So
here we'll just
everything's exclusively at Amazon. Sorry for those of you who want Nook and Barnes and Noble.
Yeah. So is it best to just say Godawa to find, or
Usually Brian Godawa should find a lot.
Brian?
Well, you know how you find the author page, right? Just get one book by the author.
Right.
Click on their name.
Click on their name.
You got to go to the page first. Go to the page of one of them. Go to the page of Daniel.
Oh, I thought I did.
Oh, there you go. Oh, you clicked on the series. There's the Watchers series. But if you click on any novel,
just to encourage you, look, I'm already following you. Just saying.
All right, baby. Scroll to the top. Scroll to the top. Okay. Well,
did that go to it? That's your page.
No.
Oh,
back at the Chronicles of the Watchers page.
Oh, my bad. Okay.
So up at the top is the description of the series. And then down in each book has the description of each book. Yeah, there you go. So if you want to, there's an intro to the series, then there's each book has its own description. So everything's at Amazon. I like to go get to the point. But for those who want to play around and just, there's a lot of cool stuff on my website for sure. Yeah. Okay, so what you're looking at down the bottom there.
So what you're saying is go to Amazon, buy a book, and then go to your website.
Yeah. All right. So see all the books there that when Watchers ruled. Yeah, all that. Okay, so with each of the new novels in Watchers, I release a companion book called The Spiritual World of. So the Daniel will have The Spiritual World of Daniel in Babylon. Now that's not available yet. It will be out with the second book. But all the other books, The Spiritual World of Moses goes with the Moses novel. Those are the books I write that have the research, biblical, historical, and mythological, that is the foundation for what I'm writing. So when you read my stuff, you're going, is he making that up? You buy these books, you can see, oh no, I see where he's getting it all from. So
okay.
Cool. Very cool.
So when Watchers built
Rule the
Nations, is that also part of that series, The Spiritual World of? Or
yeah, so what I do is that is actually a compilation of several of the spiritual series. So you can get all of them in that one Watchers book. That has the spiritual world of Moses, Jezebel, and Chin and all that, but not Daniel.
Okay, not Daniel. But then, this is the sequel to When Giants Were Upon the Earth.
Yeah, and When Giants Were Upon the Earth is a collection of all the appendixes that were in each of the novels of Chronicles of the Nephilim. So you can just read it all as a historical research stuff.
Oh, right on. Okay.
And you can read it in the description there. It'll tell you where they're coming from and where the chapters are from and stuff. So
okay,
very cool.
That's great. I'm gonna so I'm gonna go back. So just as promised, everyone, here's our cast of characters. Sorry, I almost forgot.
Yay, Daniel! So there's Daniel.
Yeah, and then
there's his love interest, Ariella. There's Michelle.
Nice.
I give the Babylonian name for those who need it. Yeah, he's got a good sense of humor, and he's an optimist, even in the worst of situations, which is kind of humorous.
I like that.
Azariah is Abednego. He's the brother of Hananiah. So he's the elder brother who watches over Hananiah, who's the next kid, and Hananiah is the one who has autism. So he watches over him, and there's his brother. He is seeing all the constellations in his mind. See?
That's cool.
Yeah. Where other people can't. There's Ebed-Melech. He shows up in Jeremiah. Okay. And he becomes a key member through both the first two novels, which is really cool. He's the Ethiopian. So here's the archangels.
Michael. Wait a minute. That's Henry Cavill again. You've got a theme going on with Michael.
Him. It's not actually Henry. It just looks similar.
There we go. We'll just hit you right.
Yeah, we don't want to say it's Henry Cavill.
It's not.
It's not.
just like the other one's not The Rock. He just looked like him.
Or Idris Elba.
But the angels can sometimes change their look and shape, just like the Watchers can.
Yeah, there's Uriel again.
So they have all the dark armor because this is the exile and all that is a real time of battle and war. So
I
They're
just
not-
noticed something. You don't give the angels wings either.
No, in fact, I don't throughout the whole series. Now you'll see it in some of the advertising only because people wouldn't get it if they didn't see the wings. You know what I mean? Like,
Sure.
you know, so, but no, they don't have wings. Because in the Bible, it doesn't say that they do. So.
Yeah,
That's true.
I've come across that recently. There was a discussion about angels and the fact that only some angels,
Cherubim, only cherubim
Right.
and seraphim, who are not the same as Malachim. They're
Right.
not the archangels, and they're not angels.
Yeah.
Queen Amethyst, the wife of Nebuchadnezzar. Who does she look like?
Zendaya.
Yeah, doesn't she?
Yeah. Yeah. I'm not going to try
This
to
is the
pronounce that one.
brother, Nabu Shumalisher, the brother of
yeah, if you say
Nebuchadnezzar.
so.
He's a loser,
Oh.
but he's going to cause some big trouble.
Okay. Nebuchadnezzar's younger brother, as you said. Yep.
There's Arioch, who is the captain of the bodyguard. See, these are all biblical characters, but they don't have any storyline in the Bible,
he
so
looks
I'm
tough.
giving them story. Yeah,
He
he's
just
cool.
looks tough.
He is cool.
The butcher.
Yeah.
Oh, nice.
And he's one of these guys who's brutal, but he's fair. And he's got a code. And Ashpenaz,
I like him.
Yeah, I do too.
Chief overseer. Shakura.
Shukura is one of the so each of the groups of boys they go to this house of the tablet, and they have each group of boys has a steward that watches over them and guides them through the schooling, and that he is the steward of the Jews. He's an Ethiopian as well.
And I was just thinking he looks very wise.
Yeah. So
This guy is the high priest of Marduk. Not a good guy.
okay.
And here's the bully of the school, who's the son of the high priest. And he's a
Okay.
bully who hates the Jews. So he's
Okay.
going to be a big problem.
Oh, nice.
And then these are various teachers of divination.
That they run into. Okay.
Very cool.
Oh, there's your liver.
Yeah.
And here's the watchers. So we've got.
Marduk,
Yep.
who is king of the gods, prince of Babylon. Nabu's the scribal god of Babylon. Son of Marduk. Ea is the god of water and magic.
Okay.
Cool.
Of course, Ishtar,
Ishtar.
very famous goddess in history. Now, here are some of the supernatural creatures. Mushmahu, and this is Babylonian creatures, but I incorporate them into the spiritual world. Mushmahu is basically the Babylonian version of Leviathan. Leviathan is in the Bible, and in the Bible, it's a symbol of the sea dragon of chaos. But I incorporate him as a spiritual being as part of the story, and so he's called Mushmahu in Babylon. Mushushu is a famous dragon that is the signatory of Marduk.
Ooh, that's cool.
And they show Mushmahu or Mushushu on the Ishtar gate. It's like a dragon with lion paws and a snake for a tail and all that. So that's actual Babylonian creatures, in their mythology. But I make them demonic creatures.
Okay. Now we're talking about Canaan. So
Now
there's.
there's Baal.
Yeah.
He's the
Prince Canaan. Asherah.
Asherah. She's a more mature, a matronly goddess, but she's got power. And then there's Molech, the despicable child sacrifice and everything.
Yeah. Ugh.
Whoa.
So I made him like a child molester.
Ugh.
Ashtar, another goddess of war, queen of heaven. That's the goddess that the Israelites worshipped, actually. They make cakes to the queen of heaven. That was Ashtart.
Ah.
Edamananki is the name of the ziggurat in Babylon.
Okay.
And Scythians are wild nomadic tribes that were used by Babylonians, and they're wild men. So they're you don't want to be around them. See the pile of skulls.
Yeah.
They're kind of like Mongolians, but they're on the steppe, the precursor to Mongolians.
Yeah. Oh man, that's great. All right, that was good. Thanks for that. That little walkthrough on those. That was cool. That was great. All right. Does that wet your whistle, everybody? That's going to be great. So it's a great start. I've enjoyed the beginning of it, and I'm looking forward to finishing it, actually. So it's going to be really good. So, gosh, Brian, I can't believe it's already been an hour and a half. Hey, thanks for your time. Holy moly.
You're very welcome.
It's been great. So
I'll let you know when the second one comes out, so I'll be on for that.
Yeah. Well, I'm on your mailing list. I'm sure you'll pop it out for everybody. Oh gosh. Oh my goodness. So, anything else we're forgetting? I feel like I'm forgetting something.
No, you were very thorough. Thank you for being very thorough. I hope this wasn't boring people, going through all the characters like that. I love it, but
Yeah. Yeah, but we're nerds.
Oh, that's right. I'm on two nerds and a microphone, right?
Two geeks and a microphone.
I'm the nerd, actually.
Probably because of all that detail, you've got us beat.
Yeah. No, there's nothing wrong with that. Nothing wrong with that at all.
Yeah.
Wow.
Well, Brian, it has truly been a joy to have you. I mean, we were looking forward to talking with you and just having a great time with you. And so
likewise,
we had such a great time the first time. And then we know we're like, oh yeah, Daniel, he said Daniel's coming out. And so we want to make sure we connected. So thank you so much for being with us. And so, hey, everybody, just want to encourage you, please go to Amazon, just look up Brian Godawa. So Godawa for those who may be listening to this one, to the audio version. So Brian, Brian, I should have said that at the beginning. And then Brian Godawa. And then you can find everything on Amazon, the books, the ebooks, the audio books. And we just want to support him as much as you can, because this is what he does, and it's good stuff. It's not like we're peddling. This is some guy who just out of nowhere. Nah, you've been doing it for how many years now?
16.
16
well,
years.
Listen, I've been a storyteller in Hollywood too for like 30. So total years of 30 for writing. Yeah.
Yeah. So, well, you've made an incredible go of it, and it's just been awesome. And the books are just splendorific. They're fantastic. They're great storytelling. So, we could all learn a thing or two from you on storytelling, I'm sure.
Yeah, that's for sure.
And that's for another podcast. Oh man. All right. Well, everybody, hey, thanks for joining us. Mike, do you have anything else that you want to add, or?
Nope, not that I can think of.
All right. Well, everybody, please check out our website at www.twogeeksmike.com. That's the number 2 GEEKSMIC.com. There you will find all things Two Geeks. You'll find a link to our merch page. You'll find a link to our Ko-fi page, ko-fi.com/2geeks. For those that may not be familiar with Ko-fi, it is like Patreon, but we enjoy it. It's a nice, fun little section. And so, or if you want to reach out to us, say, hey, any comments or anything you want to add, you can email us at show@twogeeksmike.com. Mike is very good. He looks at that email more than his own. I'm just saying.
It is true. It is very true.
And so everybody, don't forget, go to Godawa.com, GODAWA.com. And there you will find a lot more fun and extra stuff on his website. And if you're brand new, go to that, what we showed on the chronology page, or just the order of books page, depending on what you want to do. Just the options there. You can pick up anywhere and just go from there. But I'm going to encourage everybody, get Daniel, because it's a great, I'm enjoying it so far. That's his brand new one. You can pop in right there and then get a good taste of what the rest of his novels are like. And they are awesome. All right. Mike, anything else funny? Any last words?
Just that if you made it this far, please make sure and go and like and subscribe to us on the socials. We are active on Facebook and Instagram. I try to post sometimes funny memes, Some of them I might make, some of them I might steal. Who knows? I also try to put up relevant geek information, comic book character information. Yeah, I can't think of anything else right
It's
now.
late. It's late.
Yeah,
We're not used to being
late.
up this late. I'm just kidding.
But anyway, and I also post when we are going live. And speaking of going live, we usually go live on Saturday mornings at 9 a.m. Central Standard Time. You do the math on the rest because I don't like math. And we are live on Facebook, YouTube, Twitch, and most of the time Rumble.
Right.
If we're not live on Rumble, I get it put up later.
We get it done. Yeah. All right. Well, Brian, one last sincere thank you. It's
Yes.
great. This was
Thank
great.
you
It was
for
a lot
having
of
me,
fun.
guys.
Yeah, absolutely. All right. It's all you, Mike.
All right. With that said, please do not Steven skip this episode because we are much more better than the rest. Cheers.
Cheers.
Thank you for joining us today on the Two Geeks and a Microphone podcast. Tune in next week when we will have more news and reviews. Until then,